Son you shall conquer.
And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she being with child cried, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his head. And his tail drew the 3rd part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them down to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. And she brought forth a man-child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up unto Yah, and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared of Yah, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought with his angels, and prevailed not. Neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, in that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, Now come salvation and strength in the kingdom of our Yah, and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accuseth them before Yah day and night. And they overcame him with the blood of the Lamb, and by the word of their testimony. And they loved not their lives unto death. Therefore rejoice, you heavens, and you that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and to the sea, for Satan is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. And when the dragon saw that he was cast unto the earth, he persecuted the woman, which was Israel, which brought forth the man-child. And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, and to her place, where she is nourished for a time and times and half a time, from the face of the serpent. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of Yah, and have the testimony of Yahshua HaMashiach. We note that the Bible calls the red dragon the devil. And we also note that this red dragon was the one who would attempt to kill Christ or Yahshua when he was born. Revelations chapter 12 verse 4 reads, "And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born." Now, the book of Matthew, however, provides another name for the red dragon, who would attempt to kill the Messiah when he was born. We can find this in Matthew chapter 2, verse 7, which reads, "Then Herod, when he had privily called the wise men, inquired of them diligently what time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem, and said, Go and search diligently for the child. And when you have found him, bring me word again, that I may come and worship him." Verse 13 reads, "And when they were departed, behold, the angel of Yah appeared unto Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise, and take the young child and his mother, and flee into Egypt, and be thou there until I bring thee word. For Herod will seek the young child to destroy him." The book of Matthew tells us it was the Roman elected King Herod who attempted to kill the Messiah, which means the red dragon is none other than the Roman Empire. In summary, the book of Revelations chapter 12 tells us the great red dragon is the devil. That the great red dragon is the devil. It also tells us that the dragon, or the devil, will attempt to devour or destroy Christ when he was born. The book of Matthew tells us it was the Roman elected King Herod that attempted to destroy Christ when he was born. Therefore, the dragon, or the devil, is none other than the Roman Empire. And we see, according to Revelations chapter 12, verse 17, that the red dragon, or Rome, would persecute those who kept the commandments of Yah and believed in Christ. And it reads, "And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed," or the children of Israel, "which keep the commandments of Yah, and have the testimony of Yahshua HaMashiach." And with that in mind, let's take a closer look at Rome to see how they fought against the commandments of Yah and his people. The Roman Emperor Constantine was the supreme leader of the Roman Empire, or the Red Dragon, and he commanded the legions of the Roman army. In the 4th century AD, the Emperor Constantine also declared himself head of the Christian church. He was called Pontifex Maximus, or high priest of the Christian church, in 328 AD, as the following reference reads. And it reads, "In spite of his concessions to Christianity in the West and the East, and his evident devotion to that religion, Constantine remained the recognized head of paganism and held the title of Pontifex Maximus to the time of his death. Shortly after taking the reins of the Christian church, the Red Dragon wasted little time attempting to change or remove the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Most High Yah. For example, Emperor Constantine issued an edict to establish Sunday as the new Sabbath of the church instead of the seventh day, or what some people call Saturday, as the following reference reads. And it reads, "The rulers of the church from early times were prepared, should the occasion arise, to adopt or imitate or sanction the existing rites and customs of the populace, as well as the philosophy of the educated class. Thus, along with other adaptations, came the Venerable Day of the Sun, or Sunday. It was by gradual process that it supplanted the Sabbath," Sir William Domville wrote. Centuries of the Christian era passed away before Sunday was observed by the Christian church as a Sabbath. History does not furnish us with a single proof or indication that it was at any time so observed previous to the sabbatical edict of Constantine in AD 321. Rome continued to modify or remove the Most High's laws through its councils and edicts. For example, the Council of Laodicea forbid the house of Judah from observing the Most High's laws, as the following reference reads. And it reads, Canon 29, page 316. "Christians shall not Judaize, or follow the laws of the Most High, and be idle on Saturday, but shall work on that day. But the Lord's day they shall especially honor, and as being Christians shall, if possible, do no work on that day. If, however, they are found Judaizing, they shall be shut out from Christ." And the next reference reads, Canon 37. "No one shall accept festal presents from Jews and heretics, or keep the festivals with them. No one shall accept unleavened bread from the Jews, or take part in their profanity. No one shall share in the feast of the heathen, or take part in their impiety." Following the lead of the Roman Emperor Constantine, the Roman Pope also outlawed observance of any of the Most High's holy days and his laws, as the following reference reads. "Or who have celebrated the Passover of unleavened bread, beginning this sort of food with lettuce, parsley, or other green herbs, or have observed the Passover of tabernacles." In summary, the Roman Empire forbid following the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Most High. It also persecuted those who attempted to follow any of the Most High's laws, as prophesied in Revelations 12, verse 17. "And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of Yah, and have the testimony of Yahshua HaMashiach." And now, let's take a quick look at the description of the Jews. Were they white, or were they black? Okay, let's test your knowledge of the true description of the Jews in general. Now, before you guess, here's your first clue. And it reads, "'Tis also a vulgar error that the Jews are all black, for this is only true of the Portuguese Jews, who marrying always among one another, beget children like themselves, and consequently the swarthiness of their complexion is entailed upon their whole race, even in the northern region." And on to your second clue, which reads, "As I attentively surveyed the Jewish population on the streets of London, I fancy I could perceive three different casts of features. The first, Jewish par excellence, and never to be mistaken." Skipping ahead, it says, "Of the first form, I need say little to you, begging you merely to recollect that the contour is convex, the eyes long and fine, and the outer angles running towards the temples, the brow and the nose apt to form a single convex line, the nose comparatively narrow at the base, the eyes consequently approaching each other, lips very full, mouth projecting, chin small, and the whole physiognomy, when swarthy or black, as it often is, has an African look." And on to our third and final clue, which reads, "I have read of you. You are better than Jews," said he. "Are Jews white like you?" "No," replied I, "rather more like yourself, very dark." Okay, now lock in your answers and let's check your answers based on our references. Per first-hand accounts, are Jews white? Oh, that's the wrong answer. Per first-hand accounts, are Jews black or brown? That's correct. Congratulations and thanks for playing. Okay, now for a quick review. So we learned that the red dragon is the Roman Empire. We learned that the red dragon is the Roman Empire. And then we learned that the red dragon sat at the head of the Christian church, beginning with the Roman Emperor Constantine. And as the head of the church, the Roman Emperor Constantine began to change or attempt to change the Most High's laws, beginning with the Sabbath day observance. Constantine made it a law to begin to observe Sunday as the Sabbath instead of Saturday, or what we refer to as the seventh day. And then the red dragon outlawed the practice of the Most High's laws, or the observance of the Most High's laws. And we also took time to review references which showed that the Jews are black. And we also learned that according to Revelations chapter 12, verse 17, that the red dragon, or the Roman Empire, would persecute those who would attempt to follow the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Most High Yah. While the children of Judah were dispersed throughout Europe, the Most High's wrath overtook Israel because their forefathers had shed innocent blood, a blood that was placed upon Judah's children. Well, let's take a quick look at the curse that was placed specifically upon Judah. And for that, let's go to the book of Matthew, chapter 27, verse 24, which reads, When Pilate saw that he could prevail nothing, but that rather the tumult was made, he took water and washed his hands before the multitude, saying, I am innocent of the blood of this just person. See ye to it. Then answered all the people and said, His blood be upon us and on our children. The forefathers of Judah had placed the blood of the Messiah upon their children. Let's take a look to see how the Most High feels about shedding innocent blood. And for that, let's go to Proverbs chapter 6, verse 16. And it reads, These 6 things doth Yah hate, yea, 7 are an abomination unto him: a proud look, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood. So as you can see, the Most High hates the shedding of innocent blood. And with that in mind, Christ foretold of the impending wrath upon the children of Judah in Luke chapter 21, verse 22, which reads, Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter into. For these be the days, plural, of vengeance, that all things that are written may be fulfilled. But woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. For there shall be great distress in the land of Israel, and wrath upon this people. Now notice that the wrath is upon a specific group of people. And you can find that in verse 21, where it says, Let them which are in Judea flee into the mountains. And it was Judah that lived in Judea. And Christ prophesied that wrath would be upon this people. And as we keep reading, it says, in verse 24, it says, And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, persecution, and shall be led away captive, slavery, into all nations. Not 1 or 2 nations, but into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Now let's pause for a moment while we discuss verse 24. What group of people on the face of the earth has been led away captive or into slavery into all nations? There's only one group of people that have gone into slavery into all nations. This is a good description in identifying who the true children of Judah are today. The children of Judah were under the wrath of the Most High Yah. Not only did our forefathers break the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Most High Yah, they also shed the innocent blood of Yahshua HaMashiach. We know the Most High is a just Elohim. When our forefathers gave Yah's only begotten Son, Yahshua, over to the Romans, the red dragon, for judgment, then likewise, the Most High Yah gave the children of Judah over to the Romans for judgment. Let's take a closer look at this judgment and wrath upon the children of Judah by the hand of the red dragon in Europe. And the following reference read, and it reads, King Chilperic, who observed that the Jews in Paris were numerous and affluent, resolved to use compulsory measures to induce them to abjure their religion. As he led an immoral life, he hoped by his zeal in attempting the conversion of an unbelieving people to make an atonement for his sins and secure the favor of heaven. He therefore commanded that all who refused to receive baptism should be punished with the utmost rigor. In AD 692, they were treated with still greater severity by King Dagobert, who was notorious for the scandalous irregularity of his conduct. As time went on, the children of Judah were persecuted time and time again by the red dragon. This persecution continued for hundreds of years. However, around the year 711 AD, the Jews joined with the North African Muslims and Berbers to overthrow the red dragon in Spain and Portugal. The conquest of Spain and Portugal was led by none other than a former Muslim slave by the name of Tariq ibn Ziyad. And the following reference reads, he wonders if he is being drawn into a trap. He questions whether Iberia, or Spain and Portugal, is worth the trouble. He sends over a small force to probe the defenses and finds hardly any. So he sends his loyal commander, Tariq, to undertake a campaign to establish a foothold. A foothold would be an understatement. Tariq lands at what will later be known as Gibraltar, christened that day as Jebel al-Tariq, in Arabic, the Mountain of Tariq, on April 30th, 711. After Tariq lands on the shores of Spain, his army faces off against the enormous army of King Roderick the Tyrant. When Tariq sees the courage of his men begin to fail, when they witness the massive size of King Roderick's army, he turns to his officers and orders his men to burn their own boats, cutting off their only way of escape, to the shock of his own men. It was then that Tariq ibn Ziyad turned to his men and spoke something to this effect. O my warriors, whither would you flee? Behind you is the sea, before you the enemy. You have left now only the hope of your courage and your constancy. Remember that in this country you are more unfortunate than the orphans seated at the table of their various masters. Your enemy is before you, protected by an innumerable army. He has men in abundance, but you, as your only aid, have your own swords, and as your only chance for life, such chance as you can snatch it from the hands of your enemy. Skipping ahead. Remember that I place myself in front of this glorious charge, which I exhort you to make. At the moment when the two armies meet hand to hand, you will see me, never doubt it, seeking out this Roderick the tyrant of his people, challenging him to combat if God is willing. If I perish after this, I will have had at least the satisfaction of delivering you, and you will easily find among you an experienced hero to whom you can confidently give the task of directing you. But should I fall before I reach to Roderick, redouble your ardor. Force yourselves to attack and achieve the conquest of this country, in depriving him of life. With him dead, his soldiers will no longer defy him. Tariq and his warriors fight their way north, and by summer, utterly defeat Roderick and his army at the town of Gaudelet on the Rio Barbet. The Muslims and the Jews go on to conquer both Spain and Portugal. conquering most of the Iberia Peninsula. These Jews and Muslims ruled Spain and Portugal for roughly 700 years. It was during this time Jews from around the region began to relocate into Spain and Portugal. Their numbers swelled. For a short time in Spain, the Jews prospered alongside their Muslim brothers. As the following reference reads, when Jews were expelled from the east, multitudes of the nation passed into Africa, and from thence joined their brethren in Spain, who were favored by the caliphs. They had assisted the Saracens, or the Muslims, in the conquest of this kingdom, and gratitude as well as policy induced the victors to reward those who opened or secret aid they were so much indebted. An intimate connection, therefore, took place between the disciples of Moses and those of Muhammad, which was cemented by their reciprocal hatred of the Christians and subsisted till their common expulsion. As time went on, the children of Judah began to turn from Torah and began to embrace the Talmud. The Talmud is a Jewish religion based on the oral traditions of the Pharisees. This oral tradition caused the children of Judah to stop following the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Most High, and instead it caused Judah to follow after the traditions of men. Yahshua warned Judah against following the traditions of men. In Mark chapter 7, verse 5 reads, Then the Pharisees and the scribes asked him, Why walk not thy disciples according to the traditions of the elders, but eat bread with unwashed hands? Verse 6, He answered and said unto them, Well hath Isaiah prophesied of you hypocrites, and as it is written, This people honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. Howbeit in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men, for laying aside the commandments of Yah. You hold the traditions of men, as the washing of pots and cups, and many other such like things you do. And he said unto them, Full well you reject the commandment of Yah, that you may keep your own tradition. So when the Jews abandoned the Most High's laws, statutes, and commandments, and instead follow after the traditions of men, they are placed under a curse, as the following reference reads. And it reads, But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of Yah thy Elohim, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. And when the children of Judah was placed back under the curse, they were once again persecuted by none other than the red dragon, as the following reference reads. AD 1209. The suffering of the Jews in Spain were equally severe with those of their brethren in England and France. At the commencement of the 13th century, the Bishop of Toledo, perceiving them to increase in number and wealth, excited the populace against them, and putting himself at their head, entered and plundered their houses and synagogues. Skipping ahead, AD 1212. The Crusaders, who soon after assembled near Toledo, completed the work of destruction which bigoted prelate had begun. They prescribed no limits to their cruelty, and made such havoc and carnage among this miserable people that Abarbanel, a celebrated Jewish writer, considered this as one of the most severe and bloody persecutions which his nation had ever suffered, in that it caused a greater number to abandon Spain than Moses conducted out of Egypt. The Spanish nobles endeavored to interpose their authority and to suppress these cruelties, but Ferdinand, who had then possessed the sovereign power and wished to ingratiate himself with the populace by the extirpation of the Aborigines and other sects, encouraged and promoted the persecution. Okay, let's take a quick look at our timeline. Around 33 AD, the children of Judah had given Yeshua over to the Red Dragon to be killed by Roman crucifixion. After the Messiah's death and resurrection, the Red Dragon destroyed Jerusalem in 70 AD, along with destroying the Most High's temple. Rome razed the Most High's temple to the ground. The children of Judah were then persecuted mercilessly by the Red Dragon. And around 321 AD, the Red Dragon seized control of the Christian church when the Roman Emperor Constantine was made the head of the Christian church. It was at this time the Red Dragon began changing the Most High's laws, statutes, and commandments. For example, the Emperor of Rome established Sunday as the new day of rest and outlawed observing the Most High Yah's laws, statutes, and commandments. Around 711 AD, the Muslims, Saracens, and Jews conquered Spain and Portugal. Led by Commander Tariq ibn Ziyad, for a time the Jews lived peaceably with their Muslim brothers in Spain and Portugal. The children of Judah from around the region flooded into Spain and Portugal. However, as time passed on, the Talmud was introduced to the Jews of Spain and Portugal. This caused the children of Judah to follow after the traditions of men, instead of following after the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Most High Yah. This caused the Jews of Spain and Portugal to be placed under a curse. This is when the Red Dragon repaid the Jews and the Muslims back for his defeat in 711 AD in Spain and Portugal. The Red Dragon began laying the foundation for the Inquisition and the transatlantic slave trade. The Red Dragon issued a series of papal bulls and edicts or decrees that would raise the level of Judah's persecution to new heights for many years to come. These decrees and papal bulls would send the children of Judah to the four corners of the world as slaves. It would also kill the men and women of Judah who would not forfeit the Most High's laws, statutes, and commandments of the Most High Yah. And last but not least, these papal bulls would spread the Red Dragon's version of Christianity around the world. The Red Dragon would use its power to deceive the whole world. Let's take a closer look. In the early 1400s, the Red Dragon took back most of Spain and Portugal from the Jews and the Muslims. Only the small territory of Granada remained. However, many Jews and Muslims still remained in Spain and Portugal. In other words, they surrendered to the Roman Christian forces. The Roman Christian masters didn't dare persecute those that remained because they still had a sizable Muslim presence in Granada. It was at this time that the Pope issued a series of papal bulls and edicts or laws that would change the course of Christianity and the path of mankind forever. Let's take a closer look at the papal bulls called Dum Diversus and Romanus Pontifex. Again, after the triumphs of 1441 and 1442, when the first natives in gold dust had been brought to Europe from the Sahara coast, Prince Henry appeals directly to the whole body of Christian sovereigns for aid in his discovery and conquest. Nor is this appeal of one of mere sentiment. In return for cooperation, King Henry offers to divide his profits with his allies. Neither in the 15th nor the 12th century are plans of crusade always destitute of a business understanding. But the common action once found attainable is so no longer. The Portuguese offers are everywhere declined. Portugal as a nation must carry on its crusade alone. Though volunteers from other countries might flock to its standards, it is now, therefore, that the Prince sends his embassy to the Holy See, or the Pope, under Lopez de Azevedo, and obtains from the same Eugenius IV the celebrated bull of December 1442, granting the forgiveness of sin to all those engaged in the war against the Moors. Skipping ahead. The same note of crusade is repeatedly struck by the pontiffs of the next decades, all contemporaries of the infant. Thus, Nicholas V in 1452, by the bull Dum Diversus, authorizes the king of Portugal to make war upon the infidels, to conquer their lands, and to enslave their persons. And the following reference reads, by the bull Dum Diversus, June 18th, 1452, Nicholas V granted King Alfonso general and indefinite powers to search out and conquer all pagans, enslave them, and appropriate their lands and goods. The bull Romanus Pontifex, on the other hand, settled the dispute between Portugal and Spain in favor of Portugal, and apparently for the first time granted Portugal exclusive rights in the vast southerly region. It confirmed the bull Dum Diversus, specified the district to which it applied, Ceuta, and the district of Capes Bajador, and nailed through all Guinea, the west coast of Africa, and beyond towards the southern shore, and declared that this, together with all other lands acquired by Portugal from the infidels before or after 1452, belonged to King Alfonso, his successors, and Prince Henry, and to no others. And now, let's take a closer look at the actual text of the Red Dragon's papal bulls. After all, the devil is in the details. The papal bull begins by proclaiming the Pope to be the key bearer of the heavenly kingdom. He then goes on to declare himself the replacement of Christ. And last but not least, the Pope proclaims to be God on earth, as the following reference reads, but since we hold upon this earth the place of God Almighty. And the papal bull reads, the Roman pontiff, successor of the key bearer of the heavenly kingdom, and vicar or replacement of Jesus Christ. We note that Lucifer, or the devil, has beliefs identical to the Pope. in Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12, which reads, "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou sayest in thine heart,
I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation, in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High.
Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit." We see Lucifer's desire to be God, just like the Pope or the Red Dragon proclaims to be God Almighty on earth. The Pope's palpable bull gives away kingdoms such as West Africa and the New World to Portugal and Spain, and it reads, "To the tenors of these presents, decree and declare have pertained, and forever of right do belong and pertain to the aforesaid king, and to his successors, and to the infant, and that the right of conquest, which in the course of these letters we declare to be extended from the capes of Bajador and of Nail, as far as through all Guinea, which is the west coast of Africa, and beyond towards the southern shore, has belonged and pertained, and forever of right belongs and pertain to the said King Alfonso, his successors, and the infant, and not to any others." We note that the devil, or the Red Dragon, also believes he has the power to give away kingdoms to whomever he wishes. And the following reference reads, "And the devil taking him up," Christ, "up into a high mountain, showed unto him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time. And the devil said unto him,
All this power will I give you, and the glory of them, for that is delivered unto me, and to whomever I will give it. If you therefore will worship me, all shall be yours."
And Yahshua answered and said unto him, "Get thee behind me, Ha-Satan, for it is written, Thou shalt worship Yah thy Elohim, and him alone shalt thou serve." The same way the devil tells Christ he can give away all the kingdoms on the earth, the Pope gives away kingdoms on the earth to whomever he wishes. And continuing on through the bull, the Pope grants Portugal and Spain, and any nation they contract with, the ability to perpetually enslave Muslims and non-believers in the Catholic faith, such as the children of Judah. And it reads, "We therefore, weighing all in singular the premise with due meditation, and noting that since we had formerly by other letters of ours granted among other things free and ample faculty to the aforesaid King Alfonso,
to invade, search out, capture, vanquish, and subdue all Sarcians and pagans whatsoever, and other enemies of Christ, wheresoever placed, and the kingdoms, dukedoms, principalities, dominions, possessions, and all movable and immovable goods, whatsoever held and possessed by them, and to reduce their persons to perpetual slavery,
and to apply and appropriate to himself and his successors the kingdoms, dukedoms, countries, principalities, dominions, possessions, and goods, and to convert them to his and their use and profit." And then last but not least, the Pope defines how Spain and Portugal and any nation they contract with conducts trade on the west coast of Africa and other places. Portugal and Spain follow these instructions to the letter. The Pope grants purchases and sales of any things in goods and victuals whatsoever, as it shall seem fit, with any Saracen and infidel in the said regions, west coast of Africa, and also may enter into any contracts, transact business, bargain, buy, negotiate, and carry any commodities whatsoever to the places of those Saracens and infidels, provided they be not iron instruments, wood to be used for construction, corded ships, or any kinds of armor, and may sell them to the said Saracens, Muslims, and infidels, non-believers in the Catholic religion, and also may do, perform, or prosecute all other singular things mentioned in the premises. And the Pope also authorizes Spain and Portugal and any nation they contract with the authority to set up churches in the lands that they take from the natives. This is how the Red Dragon's form of Christianity spread around the world. After all, it was said that Satan would deceive the whole world. And it reads, and cause to be founded and built any churches, monasteries, or other pious places whatsoever, and also may send over to them any ecclesiastical persons whatsoever. All right, well, let's read an example of how Spain and Portugal, along with other countries, used the Pope's papal bull to conquer the world, enslave the people, and spread the dragon's version of Christianity around the world. Prince of Peru. And the following reference reads, page 97. It reads, but Atabalaba, a Peruvian prince, informed of Pizarro's and Almagro's coming, commanded them both to depart out of his kingdom. But they, not regarding it, marched directly to Coxamalca, where Atabalaba kept his court, who again sent other messengers to them with command to leave his dominions. Pizarro made answer that he could not obey any commands but those of his emperor, who had ordered him to speak with the king himself at his own palace. Atabalaba, hearing Pizarro's resolve to come forward, sent him a pair of painted shoes and armlets, that he might put them on when he appeared before his throne. Captain Fernando Soto marched before with 20 horse, passing close on the flank of Atabalaba's army. The Indians, amazed at the prancing of their horses, retreated into their fortifications, but were for their cowardice immediately slain by the king's orders. Soto sent a message to Atabalaba that the Spaniards desired peaceably to treat with them, to which he received answer that no peace could be made unless they restored the gold and the silver to the owners, which they plundered from them, and forsook his territories, which so doing they should have audience the next day. Hereupon the bishop, Vincent de Villa Verdi, now note, it wasn't the captain that spoke with the king. Instead, it was the Roman bishop, the bishop of the Red Dragon. And let's continue, and it reads, was conducted into the royal palace in the city of Coxamalca, and brought before Atabalaba, who came thither in great state, with a guard of 25,000 men. He was carried on the shoulders of his prime nobles in a sedan about which hung garlands of gold and diverse colors of feathers. He himself was clothed with a white loose vest, without sleeves. His temples were bound with a red ribbon, and a long tassel on his left cheek. and on his forehead struck 3 curious feathers. Before him marched 300 of his life guard, all in one livery, who cleared the way through which the king was to pass. The before mentioned bishop carried in one hand a cross, and in the other a Bible, discoursing with the king to this effect: that God is the Trinity, Adam the first man, Christ born of a virgin, died on the cross, the Pope, God's vicegerent. Now note that vicegerent means that the bishop is saying that the Pope is God's representation on earth. In other words, the bishop is saying that the Pope is God. And as we continue reading, it says, who according to the power he had from heaven had given Peru to the Emperor Charles, as also all other countries in America. And if he should prove obstinate and resist, he must expect nothing less than utter ruin. Atabalaba replied that he served Pachamama, being the creator of all things, and next to him the sun and the moon. How glorious do they appear, said he, in comparison to a crucified God. To make peace and alliance with mighty princes was the true foundation of wise government. But the Pope must needs be senseless, devoid of all reason, and withal highly unjust, to give away what was none of his own, viz., other men's kingdoms, in which he had never the least or smallest concern. Moreover, he would not desert the religion which he and his ancestors had maintained so many years, because there was no apparent sufficient testimony of the truth of Christianity. The latter clause was thus answered, saying, this book, O king, which I hold in my hand, proves and declares all that you question. Atabala looked upon it, turned it over leaf by leaf, then looked more intently upon the print, which done, he clapped it to either ear, and at last, as altogether unsatisfied, in disdainful manner, threw it away. Needless to say that this act done by the king literally caused all hell to break loose. And at that point, the Spaniards conquered the king, killed many people, took his land and his resources, and established churches. All right, well, let's review what we've learned so far about the papal bulls and the Pope. We've learned that the Pope calls himself Yah's vicegerent, or God on earth. If we look at the definition of the word vicegerent, it reads, a person regarded as an earthly representative of God, or a god, especially the Pope. In other words, it means that the person claims to be God on earth. And we know that, like the Pope, Lucifer, or the devil, also claims to be like the Most High. In Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12 reads, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? Verse 14, I will ascend above the heavens of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. And also the book of Thessalonians speaks of the one who would claim to be God in the last days. He is termed the man of perdition. And today the man of perdition is being revealed. In 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 3 reads, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there be a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, and that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. So we see that the Pope views himself as God on earth. And we also see that the Pope calls himself the replacement of Yeshua, or the vicar of Christ. And for that, let's take a look at Matthew chapter 24, verse 5 reads, "For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many." So we see that Christ warns us not to follow after those that would claim to be Christ. And next we learn that the Pope believes that he was given authority to give away kingdoms on earth to whomever he wishes, which includes people and resources. We read how the devil, like the Pope, also believed that he was given power to give away all the kingdoms of the earth. His only requirement was that he be worshipped. We can find that in the book of Luke, chapter 4, verse 5, which reads, "And the devil, taking him up into a high mountain, show unto him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time. And the devil said unto him, All this power will I give thee, and the glory of them, for that is delivered unto me, and to whomever I will give it." And then next we learn that the Pope established the transatlantic slave trade and the rules governing the transatlantic slave trade. The Pope defined the type of slavery that was authorized, which was perpetual slavery. He also defined the terms of the trade, what things could be traded and what things could not be traded, and with whom and where. And then next we learn that the Pope outlawed the Most High's holy days and his laws, along with making war against those who would keep the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Most High Yah and have faith in Christ. We read in Revelations 12 that it is the red dragon who persecutes those who follow the commandments of Yah. In other words, the red dragon, or the devil, or the Pope, or Rome, would fight against those who attempt to keep the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Most High Yah. And Revelations chapter 12 verse 17 reads, "And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of Yah, and have the testimony of Christ." And then we didn't cover this in the video. However, it is important to know that the Pope's title equals 666, the Vicar of Christ, which is also the number of Satan. And then last but not least, the Pope gave instructions to establish churches in the lands taken from the natives. And for that, let's take a look at a map which shows some of the lands and kingdoms that were conquered by Spain alone, who followed the orders of the Pope. In these lands, the Spanish killed and conquered the people. They took their land, they implemented slavery, and set up churches where they took over, according to the orders that were written in the Papal Bull. Portugal and other countries also followed the Pope's orders. This is how the Red Dragon's version of Christianity spread around the world. You may be wondering, what is the Red Dragon's version of Christianity? Well, it's simply Christianity that follows the practices of the Red Dragon. For example, we know the Roman Emperor Constantine created the Sunday law, which changed the Sabbath to Sunday, or attempted to change the Sabbath to Sunday. Therefore, the Red Dragon's Church follows Emperor Constantine's Sunday law. And we know the Roman Pope outlawed the Most High's holy days and commandments, and even persecuted those who did so. Therefore, the Red Dragon's Church bans the practice of the Most High's holy days, his commandments, and his laws. And we know Rome introduced pagan holy days, such as Christmas and Easter. The Red Dragon's Church observes pagan holy days, such as Christmas and Easter. And some may be surprised to know that the Red Dragon's Church, it even has specific building design. For example, the Pope tends to incorporate obelisk within its building design. And likewise, the Red Dragon's Church incorporates obelisk within its design, often included in the form of a spire at the top of the church. We never stop to ask why our churches have obelisks or spires at the top, like the Pope. We also never stop to ask why our churches have Roman or Babylonian pulpits, which is used by the Pope. Have you ever wondered why none of the apostles use pulpits? However, churches today have pulpits, like the Pope. And we also never ask why these pulpits in our churches have oversized chairs for our pastors, like the Pope. The Pope uses oversized chairs in his pulpits. And of course, none of the apostles used oversized chairs within the scriptures. This too is a trait of the Red Dragon's Church. You see, part of the awakening taking place today is simply questioning why we do things not found in the Bible or the scriptures. It's when we research these practices, we find it was introduced by the Red Dragon. You see, Satan has indeed deceived the whole world.